So this is the Volkswagen ID.4 I've been testing this week. I don't need a charge even though I'm in junction 14, right beside the charge points there. But what we are going to talk about today is the state of play with electric cars in Ireland. So grab a coffee and welcome to the Next Gear Show. So the reason I want to talk about this is not just about the car, because this is the GTX model, 77 kilowatt. It's the same car as the ID.4 is now, just a spec change. So I'm going to run through the spec on this side of the screen here of the GTX. It's a fine car, it works absolutely really well. But let's talk about some of the problems, not just with Volkswagen, but with electric cars to begin with. And then we go through some of the positive stuff as well. So some of the things are, as I can see this person here beside me trying to charge their Nissan Leaf again and running into desperate problems with the app, the charging network. As soon as you go outside your home territory, the charging network begins to take place. And once it does, you will inevitably run into a trouble somewhere. It happens all the time. Now, some of that trouble is kind of insignificant. Other trouble is newer. So this one is a 77 kilowatt hour battery. And I found, on the whole, the ESB network that are here right beside me don't actually put out the power speed of charge that they promise. There are 3 fast charge points in Portlaoise. 2 of them are in junction 17 and 1 is outside the ESB offices. None of those do the charge speed that they say they're going to do. One of them is only 36 kilowatts, supposed to be 50. One of them is 130, it's only 48. And the one beside that is a 50 kilowatt and kind of sometimes puts out 50. And when you come here, that lady's given up trying to charge her car. She's going to drive off. Her little bonnet thing is open for the charge point. She stopped trying to figure it out because I don't think there's a Chatamo on there. It's a 181 Nissan Leaf. Nissan really, seriously, she's going to try the other charge point. See, there's just so much problems that all the EV owners just let it slide all the time. So one of my biggest bugbears is you pay for your electricity on the street with these guys and everyone else. And if you don't, because of the size of these batteries, because it's 77 kilowatt, if you pull up with, I don't know, 5, 6, 7% battery in your car, even 10%, in the 45 minutes before the overstate charge cuts in, you won't get anywhere near 100% charge. So the battery's too big because the charge points only put out 50. 50's not fast enough anymore. It's just not fast enough anymore. And it's just not acceptable. We need faster chargers. We need a more up-to-date infrastructure. Some of the chargers, like the ones that are here, the high-speed ones here, can do a lot faster. But it depends on the battery condition. It depends on how much charge you have when you got there. It depends on there's a lot of variables to it. It also depends on outdoor temperature and a lot of going on, okay? But to claim the range on all of these cars, this, for instance, claims to be 500 kilometers. I say 350 is about as good as you're going to get from it. The vast majority of the cars are like that too. So please stop making excuses for car companies and start asking them for the real range of these cars, because they did this with petrol and diesel as well, exactly the same thing. Consumption figures were made up on the back of a matchbook. This is the same sort of stuff that's going on in this. Under extremely fine circumstances, they're able to achieve their 500 kilometers assumed range, depending on how you drive it. But real world driving suggests you're going to knock it maybe back to 60% of what they claim, particularly if you're going to sit out on a motorway doing exactly 100 or 110 or 120. It just gets worse and worse the faster you go. So another big bugbear I have in this country is Circle K. I'm sorry, but Circle K, you're putting charge points in that don't work in your premises. I've pulled up to a number of charge points belonging to Circle K, and I'm not really calling out Circle K particularly, but they seem to be the least supported. So at them, they seem to have just given over everything to Ionity. It just seems to give over the space to them and let Ionity run it. They have these other chargers that are there, but the vast majority of them either don't work or they don't put out much charge in the first place. Like they've got a 7.4 kilowatt or 7.5 kilowatt one sitting there, which if you spent 3 hours in the place, you wouldn't get much of a charge in, something this size. And they got this other kind of a plasticky thing sitting beside it, which is nearly unfathomable. And if it's working, which is rare, you don't get much of a charge out of it. So everything's been handed over by Circle K to Ionity, which if you're not a member, not paying a fee per month, or not using WeCharge like Volkswagen do, you're going to pay the highest rate for electricity you've ever paid in your life, 78 cents a kilowatt, which is more expensive than running a petrol car. So on the positive side, we are getting more of these chargers, faster chargers, which is what we want. Now, these ones are particularly kind of unique in Ireland at the moment, in that it's the first time ESB Networks has put in so many chargers in one location, which took a substation decided to put them in. What we really need is more chargers in Ireland, even ones that charge slower, but if there was more of them, it wouldn't really matter. So the problem is the overstay fee applies after 45 minutes, whether you're at a 250 kilowatt charger or a 50 kilowatt charger, it's 45 minutes. The problem is with these big batteries like that has over there, that ID.4, and then there's an ID.3 down there, there's chargers. This only for the smaller batteries, only 38 kilowatt, I think. Those ones aren't so much of a problem. It's the big batteries that if you're coming in with 20, you're leaving with 60 in that 45 minutes, depending on how fast the charge and what kind of charge network, because it only charges at 50 or less, as in a lot of cases. But let's talk a little bit more about the positives of what's happening. So a big plus is the cars are getting better. This ID.4 is very good. GTX model is just a spec change. ID.3 is very good. Tesla Model 3, Model Y, both very good. Skoda Enyaq, very good. Some of the smaller ones like the Peugeot 208 or E208, really good as well. The thing is, there still isn't that many electric cars in the market. We still don't have a lot of them. There's a bit of a choice going on right now. My favorite one is the Kia EV6. I think it's just a super car, looks good, drives well. It's now what I want to be, electric cars, or what they should have been all along, instead of these kind of wishy-washy, used to be a petrol car, now we've made an electric version of it. That kind of car is just sort of a compliance car. Just making electric cars, they have to have one. And now we're starting to get good cars in the market like these ones. But on the same side of that, they're still too expensive. They're still upwards from 30 something up to 50 something, and keep going up. If you want to go up to BMW X7, is it, or the iX7, I mean, you're over 100 grand there for that car. So it's starting to get really expensive at one end of the market and more affordable on the other. Renault Zoe, there's still stock of those to be gotten out there right now. GT, the Audi e-tron GT, there's a little few of those around as well. So some cars can be gotten in a short space of time, other cars take a while. But right now, the benefit is that car companies are now starting to make cars, the chassis, the running gears, the whole lot, that are actually good. We'll go for a drive in this one in a few minutes. We'll see what it's really like. Oh, there's a queue of people there to charge points now. I wasn't charged. I'm not at a charge point. I just tell you there's a queue at a charge point. We'll flick on with a drive of the ID.4, and I'll tell you about ID.4 as we go along as well, but also about the charging network and really the infrastructure problems we're having right now. So I spoke to a man there called Paddy, who has a company car, and he drives, his job takes him the length and breadth of the country, and he's using an electric car to do that with, because that's what was supplied. He doesn't pay any BIK on it, but he wastes an awful lot of his day at charge points. If he has to go to Donegal, as he was explaining to me, it takes three stops essentially to get there, because it's a smaller batteried car, and he drives to Donegal, so he ends up spending 45 minutes to an hour in pretty much every charge point along the route and back again. It takes a long time. Now that's not the fault of the cars per se, rather the fault of the charge points and the fault of the infrastructure that's attached to what we're doing. Now his car was, I think, a 55 kilowatt car. This is 77 kilowatt car, so it takes longer to charge this one because it's got a bigger battery. But the GTX model is actually quite nice. It's a lovely car to sit in. It's so comfortable and so quiet and pliant as you're driving along the road. It's just a nice thing to be in. It's a nice car to drive. You put your foot down and it goes nicely. It's a good, honest car. We did have some build quality issues. We had very heavy rain one of the days there as we're left overnight. And the next day I got in and water came out of this area here and filled up the little cup holder thing, which was okay because the cup holder can be removed, so we can take it out and empty it. and try it out. You can try out the little spaces left in there. So it worked out nice in the end. But that leak hasn't happened again. I cannot find out where it came from. Nothing is wet. It seemed to come from up here somewhere. Just dribble into the car, and it's what happened. I do find the software slow still. So when you touch that, it takes time to go from something to something. It just takes a while for everything to come up on the screen. It seems to kind of lag its way there rather than just be open and ready for me. It's not very smooth. It's informative enough. I mean, you can see charging wise here, I'm at 73% charge at the moment. That was at 100 yesterday. It just seemed to drain away on its own during the night. I only drove around the town briefly yesterday, a short couple of journeys around the town, 73% left. It seems to be doing about 22 kilowatts per 100 kilometers, which is kind of high. Under 20 is where I like to see these things to be. I don't like to see them too high up. Vehicle doesn't tell me there. That charging would tell me what I was using. No. Anyway, it does have its own software, and it does, of course, then have Apple CarPlay. Once you get into Apple CarPlay, it's fine. Nothing goes wrong then after that. It literally is just very quick. Apple CarPlay is rapid, but Volkswagen's own software seems a little bit laggy still. Heads-up display is useful. It's actually pretty good. And this one has travel assist mode, which brings up, if you set your sat-nav, it brings up all these little signs and things in front of you as you drive on the road. It's very clever, very simple. Volkswagen's managing director said, it seems like 2 years ago, but I think it was this year actually said it, that by 2025 you'll be able to drive a Volkswagen on the motorway completely automated. So the car will look after everything. I would hesitate to say that that's going to come true, because this is Ireland and we don't do road signs like other countries, and our infrastructure and network systems are not probably at the same standard as German ones. And so I've been in situations where the car has read the road sign, has read it. Here it's 80 kilometers an hour. Here we're doing that. But I've seen the car on motorways driving by junctions and stuff, and it'll see a 60 kilometers an hour up the junction, and then boo, the car comes to a halt. It's not the road. You're at 120 on the road, so it does happen from time to time. The car itself is fine. Electric cars are getting very good. ID.3, ID.4, the ones I think in the top 10 or top whatever, the top ranking cars at the moment that I think are really worth your time and effort if you're looking for an electric car at the moment is Kia EV6 is at the number one spot. Skoda Enyaq, it looks good. I know it's the same stuff underneath as this car, but it actually looks like a car I'd want to drive. This is next, ID.4, ID.3 is in there. Now, in that top 4 or 5 is Tesla Model 3 and Model Y. I know some people are criticizing Model Y, but Model Y is just a Model 3 with a liftback on it. It's fine. It does a job. It works very well. Tesla have the best charging infrastructure, for sure. Long range driving wise, I'm talking about there, rather than just kind of pootling about your town. But for a long range spin in a car, Tesla nailed it with the superchargers and their system where when you set a destination, it takes you to it, but it takes you just via a supercharger to charge up and away you go again. Very, very clever system. Everyone else is trying to catch up on that system, and they're doing it by doing deals with different electric suppliers. Anyway, that is the state of play as I see it at the moment for electric cars in this country. We are doing a lot. We're not doing enough in some areas. We're doing too much in other areas. Beware of who you're listening to and who's telling you what's what with everything you do at the moment. Check that they're independent, check that they can actually do what they say they can do, because realistically there's an awful lot of people out there trying to make money from electric cars. I don't begrudge them that. There is definitely solution stuff around electric cars that need to be done. But I won't say downright lies, but misinformation of some of them, or the kind of fudging of numbers, or throwing out stuff from press releases that is unresearched and unchecked, I don't think that's fair on the general public. That's nearly worse than what journalists are doing in some of the bigger outlets by not reporting stuff or not clearly marking something in advertorial. And that's it for me. Thank you very much for subscribing. Please help us get to 70,000 followers. It'd be really good. Or subscribers on the channel. It's really good. It's deadly. The reason I can do what I'm doing is down to you guys. The patrons, the channel membership guys, the super chats, the Sunday service chats. It's all down to you lads. So keep it up. Thanks. Winter Vibes. If you're watching this, actually probably has happened by the time you're watching it. Winter Vibes was a massive success in Mondello. We'll be back with Spring Vibes, I think, next year. Once everything settles down. It's been a very hectic year, despite the COVID lockdowns. It's been hectic. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, I'll see you on the far side.